Back. Here we go. More madness today. More madness. No trades done. So we're up to day 5 of this trade window that we talk about, that we're obsessed with, and we haven't secured anything just yet. A rival club who is chasing Dan Houston, being Carlton, have made some moves, but I actually don't think that move made today that we're all a little bit concerned about has anything to do with the Dan Houston negotiations in one way. So we hear this, okay? What I might best do is I'm going to share the video of what's happened today with Carlton, and then we can discuss it together, okay? So let's go. I'm going to add a video file. Bear with me. This one?
John Ralph.
Not that one. Bear with me. Won't be that one. Video file.
We have a trade.
All right, here we go.
Carlton's future first and future second has been traded to the Hawks for pick 14, leaving Carlton with 12 and 14 in this year's draft. This dramatically changes the Liam Baker discussion. It also dramatically changes the Dan Houston discussion. So we'll unpack that in a few moments' time. But just to repeat, future first and future second from Carlton, traded to the Hawks for pick 14. We'd long thought, Dan, that pick 14 would be used for Dan Houston. Liam Baker. But at the moment, it's gone now. And it's changed. And it's quite incredible scenes, actually. So there's a few dominoes that are starting to fall. So, look, everyone's going to link it to Houston. But I think the Blues have been planning this for quite some time. To have 12 and 14 in this year's draft is big. And they've got picks out of next year's draft.
I just want to say, right then and there, Tom Morris mentions, it's Tom Morris, right? Yeah. Tom Morris mentions that Carlton are keen for this draft to have access to it early in the first round. And they sort of, I guess, asserted that by not willing to part ways with pick 12 for Dan Houston, which is what really opened up the conversation for Collingwood to be a chance to get Dan Houston in this whole conversation. And then they've gone on and acquired pick 14, Hawthorn's pick 14, to get more picks in the first round, and they've given away their future first next year and a future second from next year. What this means with that is, and actually there is a video floating around with the Carlton footy boss / list manager saying that they've got pick 12, but they also want another pick in the draft between pick 11 and pick 30. So they haven't, I guess, deterred away from their initial goal from the outset, and they've just gotten some picks that they were searching for. It does sound precarious, just the timing of it all, and the fact that they have pick 12 and pick 14. So that if they really do want Houston, they could put something forward, right? But they're not willing to part ways with pick 12. So that means they could probably offer pick 14. And I think the only way Carlton get a hand in this conversation with Dan Houston is if things fall to shit with Collingwood. With Collingwood and this not working out with Gold Coast. And then if Collingwood have issues with that negotiation going back to Port, because we also want to now retain pick 23 if we get that from Gold Coast and take that to the draft. And that was actually Justin Leppitsch had mentioned that in the trade talk today, trade radio talk. He clearly stated that Leppitsch, that's Leppitsch intentions. They want to keep an eye on the future while also trading away for the now. But if it means they have to give up too much for Dan Houston, then they may pull away. I might even read out. Let's read out this article. Or actually, let's finish this video first.
In order to do it,
did Damo Barrett go the early crow, and he put, I think, Collingwood in the box seat in the last 24 hours? And our belief is that Carlton internally was so confident that this deal was going to have to get done. Is this further to this, Tom?
I'm not going to criticise any other journalists. I mean,
we're not criticising, but we're saying that they obviously reported that Collingwood were in the box seat, which from all reports, they were. But the whole way through, Carlton have been.
I think, by the way, Dan Hanbury is just trying to get a hand into the media here. He's obviously new to the scene, and I think he's trying to make a bit of nothing, a bit of a nothing burger, trying to throw Damien Barrett under the bus, saying that he's put Collingwood in pole position. But then with this coming to light, it's not exactly the case. But as Morris was had implied in his initial statement about what's happened, and listening to the Carlton footy boss and everybody else around that sort of discussion, I think it's pretty clear that Carlton are using 12 and 14 in a draft. If Collingwood fall to shit in this Houston negotiation, that's where Carlton could potentially swoop in and maybe use pick 14 to get Houston.
Been extremely confident of getting this Houston deal through.
Yeah.
So, I mean, clearly behind the scenes, they've been working this out for some time.
They haven't given up on Houston, that's for sure.
Collingwood.
Or Carlton.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, obviously both are going hard. I'm saying, but once again, it was reported, is what I'm saying, that Collingwood were in the box seat.
Yeah, that's right.
And now, well and truly, you'd say Carlton are back in the ballgame.
Absolutely back in the ballgame. When you've got 12 and 14 in this year's draft, you could potentially offer one of them.
Yeah.
And then see if you can be back in the game for Dan Houston. Just to clarify, it's not Brisbane's future second that's gone to Carlton that's been traded. It's Carlton's future second that they've traded. So the future second that's linked to the Lions, it's now Carlton. Will stay with Carlton for the moment. The Hawks were going to give West Coast pick 14 for Barras and then pass it on to Baker. But now that's not possible because they don't have it anymore. So I'm waiting to see how the Hawks...
Going to get the Barras deal done.
Yeah, how the Hawks are going to get the Barras deal done. How they're going to do this.
That is the interesting one of the... Actually, I can make sure this is in focus. But that is probably the most interesting part of the conversation at the end, is the fact that the Barras deal doesn't seem as clear as cut as what it was, what it would have been with pick 14 had West Coast would have accepted it. But I think they were having a disagreement, and maybe Hawthorn thought better just to trade away pick 14 if West Coast aren't going to accept it. Is there a world where Collingwood find themselves in talks with Barras? But for me, he's 31. He hasn't managed to string together a full season in his entire career. And if West Coast aren't accepting pick 14 from Hawthorn for Barras, then they obviously rate him more than that and want more than that. And I don't even think he's worth more than that right now, given his age. He just is a superstar defender and would be a great compliment to Darcy Moore, but he's just not worth more than pick 14 at this point. And and I guess Hawthorn agree with me because they're trading away pick 14. So that's that. Let's have a look at Justin Leppitsch on Trade Radio. I'll add this as well. So he had something to talk about when it came to Houston, Noble, so on and so forth.
Trade period, Collingwood clearly involved in that situation. Ever trade as we get Dan Houston, it's the big name in this year's trade period. Collingwood clearly involved in that situation. How are talks shaping up for Dan at the moment?
Look, they're probably in a holding pattern like the whole of the trade period at this point in time. But look, we're hoping to get things done, but it's not going to be easy. Nothing ever is. But I think it'll be something that we'll pick up early next week and give it another go.
Do you still have confidence that you can get there, Justin? Obviously, there's a couple of clubs vying for him, and it's going to take a lot of moving parts and pieces to be able to wrangle to get everyone happy on this deal. How confident are you?
That's the difficult part, is getting everyone happy on the deal. And we've got all these players that are involved are all contracted and can stay at their own homes. So I guess everyone sort of holds a card where they can keep that particular player. So it's a little bit of who blinks first, I guess, in big parts of it. But also, too, more than anything, it's working out what is fair value in the whole thing for everybody.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's just a bit of a standoff at the moment between the clubs, right? They all have bits and pieces of leverage. Collingwood have leverage because Gold Coast want Noble, and then Port have leverage because everybody wants Houston. He's still under contract. John Noble's still under contract. I think is Jack Lukosius still under contract. So there are hurdles and obstacles, unfortunately, and it seems like someone's going to have to bite the bullet in these conversations. Does Collingwood have to give up pick 23 to Port Adelaide? It doesn't sound like we're willing to do so. Do Port bite the bullet? Do Gold Coast bite a bullet? Like someone's gonna lose out a little bit. Someone's gonna not lose the trade, but they're gonna lose a little bit more than they probably would have first hoped for. Okay, let's catch up. Let's catch up to the comments, guys. Adio lad. Ramani. Hello, puta. What's going on? How are ya? Getting sick of this trade, Malakia. Yeah, I don't mind it. It's good content. It's good content. And if it wasn't for this extended trade window that they've introduced, then maybe we all wouldn't be sitting here chatting shit at 4 p.m. on a Friday. So I don't mind it. They need to get this trade done already. Yes, the longer it goes on, the more precarious and ominous it feels. That's for sure. Interesting developments. Yeah. Dylan, how are you? Madison, get ready for a weekend league, bro. Lock in. Brendan, how are you? It's Friday. I've got no beers. Just had a coffee. And I think I need more coffee. I need water. Oh, you fell for the media yesterday. Carlton is out of the race. You believe those two nobody reporters saying Carlton was out of the race. Ross, I still stand firm that I think Collingwood are still the number one suitor. If I wasn't clear enough in what I was trying to explain and articulate the last 15 minutes, I think I know where I stand. Greatness, how are you? Hope you're feeling better, mate. Port wants picks this year's. Carlton want pick 12 and pick 14 for Houston. 12 alone won't get it done. There you go. Stefano, Stikanete. Chris, how you doing? One thing's for certain, this is going to go down to the wire. Yep. Bit of a soap opera this one's becoming. Yeah, I don't know. Look, Leppitsch said there's a myriad of variables in regards to the trade that's already, I guess, been thrown around, and they're not hitting for some reason. But at the end of the day, somebody's going to have to fold, and somebody's just going to have to bite the bullet. We see Justin Leppitsch going and saying, we'd like to retain a presence in the first round of the draft. It is a very fine balance as it is hard to get high quality players in. So by that, Collingwood have seemed pretty firm on trying to get or hold on to a first round draft pick amongst all these negotiations. So we'll see how it ends up going. What else have I got here? I've got something that I wanted to show. Another interesting point here, but we'll get through the comments quickly. So I don't want Houston then. It's between us and North now. And North came out and said today, hey, Dan Houston said he wants to move back to Victoria to play footy. And North say, as far as we're aware, North are in Victoria. So They have picks in the first round, so they can definitely make a strong case to acquire Dan Houston. But the problem is, like, it's just not a destination club right now, is it? Yeah. Who knows? The deal is the deal is probably and they announce on the last the deal is probably done and they announce on the last day. Rossi. Houston 100% will be done on the last day now. Great. It's smart business from Carlton, eager for the draft, but if the opportunity arises, they'll pounce. That's exactly the way I see it, Tark. It's all part of the theatre. We will get Houston and ship off the 2 flogs, no more riches. Don't worry, Pies fans. Dan, I hope you're well. Sash, covered this yesterday. Use second pick on Lord. Give Port a suite of picks in the 20s. Major win for both parties. Yeah. Well, the thing is, right, if Leppitsch comes out and says we're looking to go into the draft this year, then it seems a little bit more less likely that we're going to try and bring in someone like Ollie Lord. That's what it sounds like. Trade week feels like trade year. No, we'll be right. We'll be right, Melissa. We'll be right. Carlton have nothing else to offer with pick 14. Port want Joe Richards, not always. That's a good point, Nathan. They're not going to give up pick 12. They've already made that clear, which is why Collingwood have become the front runners for this, right? And with them picking up pick 14, it's still not going to be better than what we get from Gold Coast to wrap up and bundle to Port Adelaide, and they want Joe Richards. So you'd think common sense would prevail, and 1 + 1 equals Dan Houston gets to Collingwood. Let's be honest, Carlton been going to the draft for 30 years with number 1 picks as well. Still done fuck all. Yeah, who is there, Manny? There's Mark Murphy, Bryce Gibbs would have been up there. Patrick Cripps was he up there? He was in the 10s, wasn't he? He wasn't a top 10 pick, was he? Sam Walsh. Yeah. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Ollie Lord is the only way we give up 23. We would have a Whitlock or Shanahan for that pick. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's the thing, right? If Port really do want 23, then they've got to put in Ollie Lord. And I think that's the only way Collingwood would actually consider giving up that pick rather than taking it to the draft. And Steve, how you going? Very good, very good. Barras is worth 14 and a second, even if it's a future. 14 isn't enough, in my opinion. He's 31. He's 31, injury prone. Yeah. If that's his value, then I'm out. I'm personally out. I wouldn't be giving up anything more than a first-round pick. And if I'm Collingwood, I wouldn't be giving up a first-round pick for something this risky, yeah? Do these list managers talk via career pigeons? Why did it take so long to get shit done? Houston could have been setting up his locker by now. Is it theatrics? Is it red tape? Is it just coming, I guess, back and forth? You'd think you could all just have all 3 parties, go have a coffee, fucking jump on the Zooms and sit there in the room until there's a solution. But the thing is, one club says this, the club Y tells club Z considers it, okay, it's an okay offer, but what can we do to get the best out of this? And it's just back and forth, because it seems like all these clubs involved really don't want to get shafted with this deal. That's what it feels like. Carlton couldn't move Kennedy, Young, and Owens off the books, so they can't afford Houston's salary. That's why they haven't offered him a contract like we have. Game over. Interesting point there. They did advise Kennedy and Young and Owens look elsewhere, and they've been unsuccessful in sending them elsewhere and would not be able to cover Houston's salary. Does anybody know what Houston's alleged contract is or what we're proposing? Do we take on Port Adelaide's contract or do we offer Houston a fresh new contract entirely. What does that look like? Somebody wants to enlighten me. Let's have a look. Another interesting, I guess, development or I guess concern that we heard on the grapevine today was this.
To be believed, last night he tweeted that Collingwood is not prepared to trade 13 and 21 to the Power because it believes they would use pick 13 to get 19 and 22 off Sydney, in effect getting 3 back-end first-rounders for Houston. They're only keen to trade 13 in Joe Richards. In what world does Collingwood care what Port Adelaide do with the pick that they give him for their player? Like, when has this ever been? So I don't know who's on the hot. Maybe Johnny Ralph's on the hot seat here. I'm going to put.
Well, he's
John,
clearly spoken to someone close to this situation.
I'm going to put John and his sources, and by extension, if it is true, Collingwood on the hot seat. This is maybe the first time. Been doing trade radio for a while.
Yeah, I haven't seen this.
This is maybe the first time I've ever seen a club holding up a deal because they're concerned about what the other club is going to do with the asset that they gave them for their asset. Bizarre. Well, we're seeing some bizarre things, but this is right up there. So John's on the hot seat. Collingwood, if this is true and the right information.
It's one of those ones where I actually agree with Kane Corns. If it is true that Collingwood are concerned about what Port Adelaide will do with the picks we give them, it's just none of our business, is it really? Our business is to get Dan Houston into the black and white. Whatever Port Adelaide do to get the best out of this trade after we've sold the picks to them is completely up to them. Thoughts? Feelings? Lots of moving pieces in the trade period and lots of waiting to see what happens. A bit more complicated in practice than paper. Manny says it's simple. Gold Coast wants Noble. They must pay or we keep him. I reckon we'll end up with giving pick 23 for Lord to come with Houston. I think that's the happy medium, yeah? I think, okay, sure, we miss out on the draft, but at least we get Ollie Lord. And that's what sounds like needs to happen for the Houston side of things to go ahead. Nah, not stressing, Woody. Not stressing, mate. Pick 14, they're going to take that to the draft. There's the footy boss from Carlton said that was their main objective in this offseason, to go to the draft. But if everything falls to shit, that's when Carlton might consider using pick 14 to snag Dan Houston. Steve, how you going, brother? Hope you're well. Yeah, sounds like we might need to bite the bullet on this one. Hey, mate, I still think we get Houston. We'll get Houston, but I hope we'll get the job done. We'll be right, mate. Melissa, I'm good. How are you? 13, 23, and future second for Lord and Houston. Someone said gets it done. Yeah, that's the most logistical trade between Collingwood and Port Adelaide right now. That's the one that makes sense to me. It ain't happening. You reckon, Mace? I'd rather get a tall defender from the draft than get Barras. Yeah, we're gonna bring. We will bring in Tomlinson. What did Leppitsch say? I've got a quote from old mate Leppitsch here. What do you say? Key position, tall depth at both ends is a focus of ours. So we have spoken to the managers of those guys, Adam Tomlinson and Jack Hayes. We will see where this lies at the end of the trade period. So Justin Leppitsch, it sounds like he's implying that the acquisitions of Tomlinson and Jack Hayes, it's probably going to take till the final day, just because we're trying to get our ducks in a row with Gold Coast and then we're trying to sort out things with Port Adelaide. So I think this one, it might be a bit more of a slow burn as well. It could really come down to the last day. Craig Cameron. Now, this is the representative from Gold Coast. I forget the title of his role, but he was on AFL Trade Radio. He says, there's no clubhouse leader in regards to pick 13. We've had a few clubs with some of that have come to us with offers for pick 13. We will give teams time to work out their best offers to come back to us. That pick is hot property. He also says, I don't believe so. We expect there will be a bid for Leo Lombard at before 13, so would like to use it in other ways instead. So Gold Coast know they have this kind of monopoly when it comes to the alluring pick 13, but the thing that gives me solace with other teams coming in hot for pick 13 is the fact that Gold Coast want John Noble. They want ready-made players. I don't think other players can offer up a halfback flanker, which is something they need. And we don't even know if Gold Coast are going to get Rioli at this point. So, as we said yesterday, Gold Coast need to make a statement and prove to their players and fans that, hey, we're going to bring in players to build on the existing list, which is stacked with first-round draft picks, Noah Anderson, Matt Rowell, so on and so forth, Ben King. We're going to bring in these other ready-made players rather than going to another draft when we don't really need that. We need more ready-made players to complement the superstar talent that's already there. Pretty sure Carlton can't trade a future second now either. They did trade away their future second, so there you go. Yes, Carlton confirmed their intentions are draft first. They could get Houston, but it would damage their draft hand too much. Hey, huge by the Greeks at Wembley Stadium. Huge. Very, very sad about George Baldock, though. Very sad. Carlton doing this is keeping Collingwood on their toes. We'll trade off picks 13, 23 to get this done. All teams will essentially lose out. Kieran, how you going? No news, so to speak, on Finn just yet. I guess he's probably there's just no interest there. There's just no interest. Maybe he goes to Richmond. Maybe he goes to West Coast. I think he stays. He doesn't have enough. He's just got to bet on himself. He's got to bet on himself. If his AFL future doesn't reside at Collingwood, I don't know if it resides anywhere else at this point. Perhaps Carlton are trying to get Tom Barrass. We need to try and get pick 13 and 23. Trade pick 13 and 36 to Sydney for picks 19 and 22. Gives us picks 19, 22, 23. Trade Richards and picks 19 and 22 to Port for Houston and use 23 in a draft. Problem with that, Peter, is I would imagine if Port found out that we got pick 13 and 23 and took that to Sydney to get 19 and 22 and give that to Port Adelaide, I just feel like Port would feel like we're sort of stepping on their feet in getting those picks from Sydney. I mean, sure, we're sending that to Port. You're suggesting get them from Sydney, take that to Port, and do the dirty work for Port. But Port don't want Richards pick 19 and 22. It's not enough. We're going to have to give away Richards, pick 13, pick 23 for Houston, and now throw in Ollie Lord as the sweetener. Barrass turned 29 3 days ago. He has a bit of footy left. Tom Barrass is not 29. Tom, let me double check 1 second. He's 29. Okay. He's still 30 next year. Like I said, anything more than a first round pick is too much for mine from a Collingwood perspective. Manny. Funny, bro. Bloody Carlton, they won't stop. Yeah, that's what we're hearing. 6 years for Houston. Pies would be Houston pairing pick 23, 52, 55. Perfect, I think. Did Hayes move as a free agent? He's still under contract. He's a non-free agent, Jack Hayes. So we'll still need to give up a pick. Maybe we give away pick 50, one of the pick in the 50. I think we got 48 and 51 or something like that before all the compensation. So I think we'll probably have to give away one of those picks to get Jack Hayes to Collingwood. That's what we're hearing. I don't know if it's true, though. Houston remaining 2 years of his Port Adelaide contract stays. We offered him a 4-year deal, which makes him contracted for 4 years technically, for 6 years technically. Okay, thank you for clarifying, Peter. That makes sense. So he's got 2 years left on his contract at Port Adelaide. We offered him 4, and that essentially makes that 6. Pretty simple. That's Corns twisting words. Our argument is we could go to Sydney for their picks, but we're holding faith with the 3-way. Okay. Thanks for the clarification. Thank you for the clarification. Carlton to Barras now. At the end of the day, Ollie is 22, ready to go. Even if we get a young fella from the draft, he may not be ready for a couple of years. So I think getting Lord and Houston is a win for us. I agree, Carmen. I like the idea that Ollie Lord is at age 22. He's done all the hard yards. He's shown enough to remain on the list and probably almost ready to have a crack at AFL level. Whitlock twins, Shanahan, Thomas Sims, doesn't matter. These guys are going to take time. And I think Ollie Lord is in that perfect age bracket that we always talk about. Not a fan of Hayes, but Tomlinson will be solid. Yeah, I think Hayes will be, at this point, a fringe player. If he lives up to some of the games he's had, particularly the one against Collingwood in 2022, then we'll get a great return out of him. And Tomlinson will also be solid as a stopgap for a couple of years. Do you still pick up Hayes as a backup for Cox if you get Lord? That's a great question. If we get Hayes and Lord, where you can essentially say goodbye to Nathan Kruger and maybe even Reef McInnes. That's what it looks like. Very likely that could happen. Tomlinson will stay at Melbourne now, apparently. Where'd you hear that, Kev? Ready, how you going, mate? How are you going? G'day. Will North be able to grab Houston? They can, but I just think Port are somewhat respecting Houston's desire to go to a Victorian club, but they are dealing with Collingwood. Port, Carlton next in line. North are probably the last option. And like I said, Collingwood have Joe Richards and Port Adelaide want Joe Richards. So that's why we're at the front of the line for Dan Houston. Reef will sign a 1 or 2 year deal. Not much value from Reef or Finn. I think Brass is more of a priority than Houston. Nah. I can't justify giving away a first rounder and more for a 30-year-old next year who hasn't played a full season of AFL footy. I can't do it. Not based on Collingwood's recent history with Lockie Schultz and Brody Grundy and Trelaw. We can't add to that trauma. It's just too risky. Collingwood's list is older than Ice Age. You got anything better? Is Jack Madgen available? The man. You've caught Jordan Lewis brain if you think Port will bundle Lord in with Houston no matter what you offer. I think if we throw in pick 23, along with Richards and pick 13, we will get Ollie Lord. I will stand on that one. How on earth do we get Lord and Houston if Port aren't happy with pick 13 and Richards? As I just said, if we get pick 23 from Gold Coast along with pick 13, we bundle that with Richards. So pick 13, 23, and Richards. Hopefully, I'm hoping that we can get Ollie Lord along with Dan Houston after that. Let's find out. Heard whispers on Port liking AJ. I'd add him in the Houston Lord deal if it happens, especially if that's difference. I want to know where your whispers are from greatness. Hey, if Ash Johnson wants to go to Port and it helps us get that deal over the line, then I'd also be happy for AJ to have a fresh start at another club. This one's a standby, isn't it, G Money? It's sort of just a watch this space, really. So it is a watch this space. We're gonna get Wooden Spoon data on. He's got some stuff he wants to share with us. So Woody, if you're in the chat, jump in, brother. Jump in, and we'll get you in front of the Pies Footy faithful. Was there something else as well? Was there something else here? I think that's basically it, really, before we get old mate Woody on. Here he is. Woody, you good to go, brother? Good man. Good man. Wooden Spoon data.
Hey mate, how you doing?
How you going?
Yeah, not bad at all. Not bad at all. Yeah, wanted to jump on. I've got a bit I'm gonna go through with you, I reckon. Got a few graphs, things like that I might be able to show you. So yeah, should be fun.
Awesome. Do you have access to sharing stuff from your end here?
I think I do. Give me a second. Yeah, I can share screen, I believe. Easiest with two. Let me just double check things.
You still on the clock, bro?
No, thankfully I've knocked off. So I'm good. All right, that should work. So yeah, there it is.
Beautiful. I can add that to the stage. All right.
Perfect.
What have we got?
All
So
right.
just explain to the Pies Footy faithful what exactly we're looking at here.
All right. Yeah, good question. So I've broken things down. Done a lot of, I suppose, data scraping into top fours, all the sort of position types, just general averages anyway. So with say Darcy Moore here, you can see there's a 27 next to Darcy. That's because we take a whole bunch of stats here, and we see if he's above or below them. So with, say, player rating, he's got an 11.165, which is above the average for a key defender at 7.85. So he gets a point. And across the 37 different stats we're tracking for key defenders, yeah, he gets 27 above average. So yeah, it gives us a bit of a breakdown of each position type. I've got that for key defenders, medium defenders, every sort of position type. Did have to, just with the way I'm getting the stats, combine medium forwards, which is kind of small sort of, you know, your kind of crumbing types, as well as sort of your midfielder forward type. So kind of you maybe go down and grab a mark. Say Dusty Martin fits in that sort of role, right? So yeah, so it's broken down a fair bit. And then I've got it into this situation, which is you pick your kind of players that you think might be in the best 22. You put them in here, and it kind of does very similar stuff, right? So in this case, it's comparing against the top four for the last 5 years, and it does the same thing. So it gives you a point above if they're above. Otherwise, it just doesn't give you a point. Now, these I might need to update, to be fair, but it's meant to reflect what their numbers were up here, and then the difference there. So I do think I need to update that from the team I copied this from originally. But that should be correct with how many total stats that they get that are above the average for a top six group in defence. So for this group, we've got 16 out of 37 in which the defensive groups as a whole is above. So yeah, it kind of works the same for midfield, ruck, forwards, and interchange just kind of adds additional stats for the total team and where they are above and below.
Okay.
So yeah, it does that, and then it feeds out here to these graphs in which it gives me the ability to change teams and that sort of stuff. But
Awesome.
yeah, we've got your key defenders here. It shows you visually your medium defenders, and then your group as a whole. And these are what have been roughly identified as the most important stats for each position type, so that you can kind of get a good grasp on where they are in that sort of field.
All right. My question to you, Woody,
Hmm.
is can you give us some insight data wise on Dan Houston? Do you have some data
Yep.
on Dan Houston there?
Yeah, definitely. So if I go down here to Port Adelaide, I've got Dan Houston. Dan Houston has 27 out of 37 stats that are above average,
Yep.
and presents as the best defender running out of the medium defenders for Port
What are
Adelaide.
some of the stats in this that are considered that would warrant Dan Houston being an elite medium-sized defender?
Yeah, good question. So you could go through all these numbers, but it does kind of take a little bit of time. It's a bit easier to kind of reference up the top here, right? So you've got
Yep.
the player ratings, and you can see that it's included for defense here. You've got other ones where coaches' votes, where I've decided they're probably not really referencing numbers that help me as much determine what's good and bad. And then yeah, from there you can kind of go through it. So there's a lot of basic ones at the start:
Yep.
kicks, handballs, disposals, efficiencies. We've got things where you've got to stay below in terms of clangers. You want to be below average. Likewise with turnovers. Yeah, and if you
Where
go
does
to
Houston with Houston regarding clangers, where does he sit at the moment with that?
right, with Houston regarding clangers. So Houston is slightly above average. So he
Yep.
does get more clangers than general. But that look, to be honest with you, if when you look at top four, right? So I've got this thing over here, right, which is let it load, top four averages, right, for the last 5 years. This is what it references against. When you look at it from fourth to first, we'll go back to Port for now, but when you look at it from fourth to first, you essentially see that the better players generally do get more turnovers and clangers. And it's because, as you notice, one stat to the left in meters per disposal, it's above average. You'll also see meters gained above average. Rebound 50s above average, inside 50s above average. And the reason that happens is because good players take the game on more. So they are going to get the ball more, they're going to turn it over more. So while it is an important stat there, and it's better if you're under it, so I still do consider it when kind of debating what makes a good player and whatnot. I don't actually worry too much about that. So I'd actually say it's not a terrible thing that he's pretty close to where he is for an average player.
Yeah.
And then yeah, from there it seems like all the other sort of stats of how he moves the ball are quite good. So even if you look at this, right, his disposals per turnover, high. He gets an extra disposal every time he turns it over. Yes, he turns it over a little bit more in the game, that sort of thing, but he gets more kicks, so it's kind of going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like in some regards, it's a little bit high, but look, you're going to get that with your good players. That they are just a little bit higher. I mean, look, if you compare him to other good players there, they're similar. Ryan Burton likes to get some good meters, that sort of thing. So it's kind of how you define the player in that regard.
Yeah.
Looking further on it, he does get kind of things you'd see from midfielders as well. Contested possession ratings is kind of not too far off where you'd want it to be, about 10% lower, but because midfielders are down here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's still pretty good. So he's got some interchangeability there. Intercept possessions high, right? Like compared to compared to your average player really above. So he's realistically one that I'd probably immediately go and put him straight into your kind of average best 22, right? So if
Yeah.
I take all these stats,
Would you just give me 1 second? I have 2 questions before I forget. So,
Yep.
one, with the clangers, we know, yes, it's a little bit high, generally speaking, but as you suggested, more touches equals more likelihood of clangers, but also the fact that he's averaging nearly 4 inside 50s per game, he has the responsibility to take the hardest kick in football, and that is the kick going inside 50.
bang on.
Secondly, that was probably more of a statement than a question, but regarding intercept marking, intercept possessions,
Yep.
how does that work against the average medium-sized defender? Can you show us that?
Let's go to there. So we've go to your intercepts, which are here. We've got intercept possessions. I consider them one of the more important stats for a defender. He's also similarly good in ground ball gets. Hard ball gets, I mean, that's kind of meh, but it's still above, probably not where he'd want them to be, considering I think he does want to play a bit more midfield. But still good, right? Like compared to your average running half back, that sort of thing. Likewise in loose ball gets, it's above average. Where you kind of maybe getting a little bit less is forward of the ball, right? If he was to actually crumb the footy, he's probably not sharking it from a contest as much, but it's still good. I mean, those are the sort of back half where you're going to get it. Also, look at his handball receives, right? Like he's ready the second you get the ball to, as you said, go forward, create that forward play. It's one of those things where I think it's this way actually, where you start looking at where their actual percentage rates for score involvements are. So look at his percentage there. That's 18.98. So let's call it 19%. It's
And
better
the
than
average
anybody
is
else in
12.
his team. Yeah,
The
and
average.
the average is 12, right? So
Yeah.
he is one that's going to create here two launches a game
Yeah.
roughly, and the average is less than one.
What's
So
a launch for the people that may not understand what that exactly means?
right, so it's the starting possession of a scoring chain. So a scoring chain will have X amount of disposals between the first time you get the ball and either kick it or handball it to a teammate, and when you last kick it through for either a point or a goal. So it's the first one. The launch is the initial. You got the ball from your opponent or the tap or whatever it is, right? It's the initial of the chain of scoring. So he does it twice as much as anybody in his position.
Is there a way you can get Houston and Noble sitting next to each other, just that, and
Yep.
maybe Dane Zorko, those three in the same picture?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no worries. Let's do it here because it's easier enough. I haven't filled out the.
You and fucking Pom, fucking spreadsheet wizards, mate.
Yeah, that's it, mate. So let's double check. I've actually, I don't think I got everything I needed there. So let's get this all in there. We'll put just values only. We'll put Houston in there at 29. Now, there is certain things, as you see, 27 goes up to 29. That's as I mentioned earlier, you're more likely to get certain things that you want underneath, say freeze against. You're more likely to have more freeze against. You're more likely to have more clangers and disposals as a good player, right? So when the bar actually raises and he is versing medium defenders, he's now just underneath it, right? Because
Okay,
the top four bar has actually been raised. So yeah, interesting little things that actually took me a little while to comprehend. I sat there for a few days going, what the hell is wrong with my stats?
Why are all the best players? Why are these averages going up for all the best players? But like you said,
yeah, right.
They use the ball the most, and they're going for the most dangerous kicks usually in the game.
Exactly right. So it took me a little bit to get my head around it. So we'll jump over to your page here. I'll grab Noble quickly. He's got about 20 here, so he's fairly similar in a lot of regards. But we'll make it we'll make it easy to see as I
Yeah.
showed you
So,
earlier.
guys, just while Woody's sorting this out, what we're looking at here is we're going to have a look at John Noble, the player we're looking to give up, and looking at Dan Houston, the player we're looking to bring in, and then Dane Zorko, use him as a bit of a benchmark because of what he was able to achieve as a halfback flanker for Brisbane this year, and just reflect upon those numbers. So we've got Dan Houston, Noble, and Zorko are there. Let's have a look. What surprises you between looking at all these three? What are maybe some things that you look at, you go, oh, fuck, okay, didn't know that.
I mean, the thing that I've noticed most with good players is that when you move them from a comparison against the average to a comparison against the top four, if they're staying the same or even potentially moving up, as mentioned earlier with Dan Houston, they're generally in the top echelons because most when you move the comparison bar higher, they have less numbers that go above that bar, right? So the people that stay in the same sort of number and from initial to kind of where they're at, they keep their strengths in that sort of top four realm, right? And if they're used in the correct way and positively, they can be assisting a premiership side as we've seen with both Noble and Zorko. So I think looking at Dane Zorko from memory, I'll just double check. We got 24 originally, so he moves over here. You still get 24. He's in that sort of elite category. When you look at Noble, you come up to here when he's where he's originally getting a 22 and he goes down to only a 20. So he's pretty close to that elite category in what he's good at. He is close to that elite category. Likewise with Dan Houston, we've already seen him go up, right? So that gives you a good idea. If we jump over to here, right, and I quickly change I don't have them in here, so I'll just quickly add them. Port AD. Oh, got to actually spell it right for it to do what I need it to do. So let's chuck port in there quickly. All right, cool. So I've got to. Why is that doing that? Have I spelled something? I have. Yeah, okay. Well, it doesn't matter. I haven't actually put anything in there, so that's fine. Look, we can only really compare to this graph, right? So I'll stretch it out a bit so we can see a little bit more.
Yep.
But yeah, essentially we've got this as their major comparison. Sorry, it does this a little bit.
Okay, cool. So you got Dan Houston in red, John Noble in yellow, Dane Zorko in green.
Yep. And if I look at it here, right, you can kind of see that the top four defensive average and where they sit in that number. So for player ratings, right, these are the ones I've kind of found to be most important for a medium defender. Look, they're all pretty much at average or above. In fact, they're all above average, right? So
what's
best
striking to me? What's striking to me in this one, Woody, is the intercept marks. You got John Noble, who's well below the average for the position. You got Dane Zorko, who seems to be also well below the average, somewhat. But then Houston is above average, averaging nearly 2 intercept marks per game in his position.
Yeah, so he's 1.6. This is a non-linear graph, so it is a little bit weird. It starts at 1 instead of 0, so that's why you get some numbers that get below. But essentially you're right here. You're going to get a lot more intercept marks generally there. You can see a lot of like similarities between the players, right? Like handball receives, they're all fairly similar. Pressure acts, you're going to get similar results between yourself and Houston there. 1%ers, you see a jump, so that's where I think score launches as well. That's quite the difference there. But I think you're essentially, if as you've mentioned earlier, if you're swapping, basically right, you're swapping Noble for Houston, you're going to see an upgrade in a lot of areas. And I think it's score launches. I think it's defensive. I think there's a few things that really get you ahead there. These are where I think you're best suited. Loss is a little bit annoying In terms of how it's tracked, loss percentage, it's based on 1v1s. How they're tracked in the AFL seems to be not the best in terms of generally getting them out. So yeah, we unfortunately don't have much on that regard. But in terms of other stats, there you can see.
I'm just looking at the chat. Do you want to chuck in Nick Newman as well, just quickly? Because Nick Newman does shit. This is why, guys. I don't know. Like, Houston obviously is a great acquisition for Carlton, but they've got a very similar player, probably a poor man's Dan Houston with Nick Newman, with the sort of profile that he has when it comes to the way he plays his footy. So Woody is going to chuck that on just so we can have a quick look at that. Sorry, Ross.
Yep.
I was just looking at the slides. I was infatuated. I was enthralled. Houston was always waiting for Carlton to secure another first-round pick, but the Pies need to hold Noble to his contract. And then what we might do as well after this one, Woody, can we have a look, after we have a look at these, with Nick Newman included, can we look at Charlie Dean, Darcy Moore, and Tomlinson? Can we do that?
Yeah, for sure. Why are they not popping up? Sorry, give me a second.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it just loss percentage? No, it's 1% in pressure acts. Bizarre. Sorry. Bizarre. Did I not copy them? Maybe I just hang on. There's every chance I didn't do that. Yeah. All right. That makes more sense. Yeah, sorry about that. We just forgot a couple stats. There we go. Go back to Port Adelaide. And there we go. So it looks like we were missing those last couple of stats there. Perfect. So now we should go back to the graphs and go back to here so it's not getting covered. Awesome. So yeah, we again get some interesting information out of it.
So Nick Newman is orange.
Yes, Nick Newman is orange in this graph. Now just
He finds a heap of the footy. He's great in rebound 50s. He's better than Dan Houston in intercept possessions. He's not as good in intercept marks. Tackling is good. Score involvements aren't as good as Houston. And yeah, I mean, he's a little bit better in intercept possession domain. Launches
there's a few spots where he's quite good. I mean, he's a little bit above average in terms of your top 4 loss percentage. As I said, it doesn't grab every player, which is a bit frustrating. It does seem like it has a threshold where it just doesn't consider the total percentage. It seems like that if you just don't get enough one-on-ones, it doesn't do the math for you. But yeah, basically you get a lot of it there. A lot of them generally across the board, if you're getting any of these players, you're getting above average output. I mean, the only thing you'd really be a little bit below on is kind of score launches there. Maybe you get some better results. Yeah, I mean, but everything else, right? Like you're getting pretty good intercept marks again. Not quite where you want, but you're getting a really quality player. If any of these 4 players, they're kind of top level players in their fields.
Right.
I mean, looking quickly back there, I mean, we had 27 from Nick Newman. He does present, a little bit better than Zorko against top 4. Likewise with Noble, but not where Dan Houston's at. So there are a few more positives for Houston. Which ones? Look, they take me a little time to find them for you, but they do exist.
All right. Do you mind showing us, just to finish off the stream, do you mind showing us Tomlinson, Charlie Dean, and Darcy Moore?
Tomlinson, Charlie Dean, and Darcy Moore. So let's go back to Collingwood first. We'll get rid of these
While Woody
players.
does that, guys, as well, the reason why I'm asking for those 3 players is because Charlie Dean is probably our most likely at the club to try and hold down that second key tall defender position, even though I personally don't think he's necessarily the right size. I want to compare that against Darcy Moore, who is a consistent premier defender, and then
Yep.
you have Tomlinson, who are looking to bring in. So I just want to see where does he stand when it comes to key stats in the key position in the back line. So that's the idea behind pulling these three together.
Hang on. Let me do what I did for Sydney, but the other way around. Sorry, it's just frustrating with these teams that have the same bloody names in them. Like, we got 2 Sydney teams, we got 2 Adelaide teams. They're bloody frustrating to isolate. Give me a second. So, that being said, he is a half back, isn't he? Is Tomlinson? Is that right? No.
It'd be a key defender, key size.
No, what am I talking about? I'm thinking of the GW. Melbourne. I've got.
That's okay. Guys, I'm just hearing from Tom Morris. It's now a 4-way race for Gold Coast Suns pick 13. Melbourne are offering a future first, a second rounder from this year. Sydney are offering pick 19 and 22 for pick 13. Dogs are offering a future first. Collingwood are offering Noble future first for 13 and 23, as we already know. The Sydney Swans are in a similar position to Gold Coast. They have elite 2025 academy talent, so are more interested in next year's draft than other clubs. The Suns won't go to the draft with this selection. Interesting.
So you want a Dean and then you want a Tomlinson. So let's just do Dean really quickly, because that will make my life easier. All right. Dean plays better as a smaller. That's pretty funny. All right, and then where are we looking?
Tomlinson for the D's as well.
That's right. Need to grab all this again.
I also don't mention Billy Frampton because I just genuinely don't think he's up to AFL standard anymore. He's served Collingwood very well. But if I had to choose between Billy Frampton and Charlie Dean, I'd hand on heart rather see Charlie Dean be given a fair shot at AFL level, because we've seen Billy Frampton in a large sample size. He has some games where he plays like one of the best key defenders in the game, but then he has too many games where he just looks like fucking Bambi on ice.
Double check what I'm doing. Tomlinson. No, that's all right. His numbers. Let me quickly.
Yeah, that's right, Greatness. Gold Coast have said they want players. So all these picks that are being offered by other clubs, it's like, well, Gold Coast, you say you want ready-made players, you want to prove a point, then why are you shopping this pick for other picks that you can't really use for other players at this point anyways, because there's not a lot in the market. If you want someone who's in the market that's available this year, that man is John Noble. Champs, what site did you see this on from Tom Morris? I saw it on Twitter or X. And that was, I think that was actually straight from Tom Morris's account, Melissa. X is really good if you want to stay up to date with all like the trade conversations.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to see why this isn't working. Give me a sec.
No, you're right, bro. You're right. Gold Coast poached Noble months ago through his father, as they need to pay up. Hot take. Worst case scenario this trade period from here. We keep Noble, meaning we don't get 13 or end up getting Houston. Joe Richards leaves. Yeah, that is one of the worst case scenarios for sure. For sure. It also means we don't get pick 23. So then do we potentially shop around our future first to other clubs to try and get into this draft? But is that too late with some other clubs already making moves to get into this draft, trading away their futures, like Carlton, for example? I think Gold Coast are bothered. I think they are. They're just playing hard to get.
It should work. Give me a second.
Yeah.
It should be Melbourne. Let's try.
That means Swans will deal 13 for 19 and 22. I mean, if they do that, like, what are they doing? Like, we talk about Gold Coast
There we go.
being in the window now.
All right. Bizarre. I don't know why it required that and then didn't in this. Anyway, don't worry about it. I think it's a weird way that search functions. But anyway, there we go. I did not want all of them. Why did you? All right. Give me a sec. There you go. All right, cool. So let's go back to charts. We will go back and put this into a somewhat normal size. So we can see the next chart. All right, cool. So go to Collingwood, and then we've got your key defenders here. So that's your comparison between Charlie Dean, Darcy Moore, and Adam Tomlinson. You essentially have, I mean, some better results out of Tomlinson generally.
What's scary is his player rating isn't too far away from Darcy Moore, but we do take the player rating with a grain of salt, don't we? Especially when it comes to defenders and forwards, right?
I mean, look, the thing is, right, the thing I find about player rating is it's a really good base level understanding. But I think you probably don't get the sort of major differences. Like if this was on a scale of like 100 instead of, the kind of numbers that you see, you'd be seeing a fair bigger difference between Dean and Tomlinson. Like when you see a 9.5 versus a 7.5, you kind of go, oh, they're fairly close. But if that was like a sort of 70 out of 100 or whatnot, and you've got Darcy Moore out of 85 or something like that, you get Charlie Dean at 65 or something, 60, you kind of go, oh, there's a bigger jump there than kind of first expected. I think it's a good basis, but it's not a be all and end all. I mean, when you look at turnovers per disposal, mate, like, I mean, you get nearly twice as many disposals from Adam Tomlinson that aren't going directly to your opponent. So big improvement there. I mean, you look again, 1%ers, he's again doing well better. Spoils, he's doing well better. General sort of tackles, they're not huge numbers, but he is doing better. Got an extra half of or so in him a game. And then the things where you're kind of not getting better, they're fairly similar. Total marks, fairly similar. I mean, look, yeah, I mean that's kind of it. I mean, you're getting a better player. I mean, if you're going to verse them, and there's a good chance you do get Tomlinson, I think you've got an improvement there. Somebody that could actually stand with Darcy Moore, help get you back to sort of the numbers you were seeing with Murray.
Hopefully, with old mate Murph.
Yeah, Murph.
Fuck Woody, mate. This is unreal. If you want to shoot this, are you going to be sharing this spreadsheet? Like, what's your plan?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll be doing more once it's kind of fully done. I think it'll be shared going into the preseason. It's kind of the basis right now for some predictions in terms of modelling. But it needs a fair bit of work. So yeah, exactly. Sorry, Shane. Yeah, so it's got legs to it. It's got a fair bit of good information there, but it's got a lot to grow. So I'll be releasing a full video on Collingwood with kind of changes across each line, what you might see year to year. But yeah, I think that's we want to see kind of the changes to your team first. I'm not going to get a ton out of draftees before they start, so it will be kind of hopefully out a fair bit before the draft. And then you guys will get at least my thoughts on who you should be picking up. So
All right.
yeah, a lot coming through. I'll probably be releasing public access a bit more come pre-season, once it can do a bit more predictions and people can play around with it, have fun, that sort of thing.
Brilliant. All right, Woody, guys, if you want to see more of this type of content from Woody, there's the YouTube channel there, Wooden Spoon Dart. He's got some really good content there, and he's really, I guess, going through a bunch of data right now to get some really good videos out very soon. So be sure to subscribe. He's going to have some content coming soon.
Yeah, bang on. And look, thank you very much for having me, Ant. It's a pleasure to jump on and go through
Always.
some of the Collingwood stats here. So any further requests in the future, I'll definitely help. I'll throw you some charts for your videos as well.
All right. Cheers, Woody. Talk soon, brother.
No worries. Thanks, lads. Have a good one.
See ya. All right. There we go. Wooden Spoon Data, Mr. Woody. Just to answer a couple more questions before we get going, guys. Vintage time. Kind of wondering what Mitchell's role will be if Perriman gets midfield time. If Mitchell's healthy, it's gonna be a tough conversation, right? Harry Perriman will be in our starting 22. Does Mitchell find his way in there? Oh, it's tough. It's tough. When you think about Nick Dacos, when you think about Pendlebury, when you think about De Goey, when you think about Josh Dacos potentially rolling through there forward of centre, when you think of Ed Allen, and then you think of Harry Perriman, and then Jack Crisp, it's going to be difficult. Perriman can play in other positions, but I would suspect that Perriman would get at least 50% midfield time when he comes to Collingwood at the very least. But yeah, and also Tony, great point. The fact that Houston is 6'1" and is one of the best intercept markers as a medium-sized defender. So not only are we getting an offensive weapon in Dan Houston by way of his ball use, we're getting someone who can actually start his own score launches, rebound 50s through his intercept marking ability. No one talks about that. And I will do an analysis on some of his games and show his intercept marking ability, because we're all talking about he's going to be so good for us because of his ball use and the way he's going to be able to build up and help us out of the back line. All true and warranted. But we're getting more than that. We're getting someone who doesn't mind an intercept possession or 6. And we're getting someone who doesn't mind an intercept mark or 2. Okay? Yeah, the inside. The problem is Mitchell can't play anywhere else. Absolutely, Mitchell plays. Who else is going to win our ball? We struggled without him. Well, Nick Dacos wins us the ball, right? He's a good hit 2 option. I think Harry Perriman could be that. Pendlebury is that at times. Jordan De Goey. I think it's not as clear cut as you might think it is. Yeah, Charlie Dean is too small to be a key size defender. But Billy Frampton, I think he's tried and tested and probably not the answer. Tomlinson's numbers there didn't look great, I'll be honest. But put him into the Collingwood side, make him wear the black and white with pride, and we might get a better version of Tomlinson. Here we go. Leppitsch said today Perriman will play halfback and work into the midfield in the future. Thank you for bringing that up, Rick. So that means Perriman and Houston, if Houston makes it to Collingwood, will play off the half-back line, which will ultimately send Dacos back to his All-Australian position on the wing, or I'm daring that he plays much more midfield time next year, if that's the case. All right, guys. Once again, thank you for sticking around. Day 5 of the trade period is done. We won't do anything for Saturday and Sunday because I don't think the business will be closed for a couple of days. So thank you for the massive week, guys. We'll be back Monday, same time, round the mark. We'll call it 4:30, and we will visit anything that develops over the next coming days. I hope you all have a great weekend. And until then, take care. Go Pies.